You said though that's I think generated the most buzz has been about a change in personnel. I mean that's what the Indian Express kind of led with in your column yesterday, and I wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit. When you are saying that there is a kind of a drift in decision making, which is what I deciphered from that. Are you talking about changing bureaucrats? Are you talking about changing ministers? Are you talking about the political leadership, bureaucratic leadership? What does it mean?
So I think obviously I don't want to name names or list anyone in particular, but I do think that the personnel change at ministerial, bureaucratic, advisory, technocratic level is overdue. And the question is why? Why is a personnel change? After all, when people say, "Oh, the solution is do more policy reform," maybe those who are in power now can do that. I think the reason for calling for personnel changes is twofold. First, I do think that, you know, in modern markets, credibility of the interlocutor matters. Mario Draghi famously said, we will do whatever it takes. And it had a big impact on markets. So there's a kind of signaling effect of having credible, honest, transparent, competent interlocutors. And I'm not saying the government doesn't have them. It's just that in the last when this crisis has been going on, there is a sense that whether you turn to look at New Delhi, the centers of economic decision making, or Bombay, there is a sense that they're reacting to events rather than coming out and saying, look, this is the problem, these are the numbers, these are the challenges, and this is how we intend to respond to them, with a cogent, articulated plan. So that's the first part, the credibility of the interlocutor and the signaling value. The second thing relates to what I just said earlier, that if you think the problem is, instincts and basic things that need to be changed, if the same people are in place, it's unlikely that those habits, those ideas will change. So that's the reason why you need people who are willing to speak openly and honestly, and people who will not say things because they're expected to say things. And then above all, I think that we tend to forget that the beauty about democracy is churn, in decision making, people and so on. And there's a certain staleness that comes if the same people, at ministerial, bureaucratic level are there, staleness of ideas, habits are the same. And because we need to kind of tell investors that India is kind of different place now, and please invest, it requires, I think, a change in personnel to signal that change in some fundamentals.
So you're saying that the government doesn't need cheerleaders. It needs people who can, dispassionately tell them the truth. That's wishful thinking.
No, I see. To be fair, again, I mean, again, we know that when one of their own or whatever, someone who's otherwise aligned with them spoke up recently, it did make a difference. So I think, it's useful to have voices like that.